As I was saying, that this is the visual representation of how you're going to actually build your schedules, whether they're separated by your different locations, different departments. It's really configurable and up to you. And basically, it's just allowing you to see where you want to enter into the schedule. So I'm actually going to jump right in and show you a scenario, Jesse, that I think is probably pretty common and very stressful to kind of level set, but giving you a potential real life scenario. So I'm going to jump into Glenwood Gardens template, their nursing template here, that you're going to see has some badges. So we can jump just by clicking right into it. And this is actually a schedule that's essentially built out already. So this is trying to level set that it's live and your employees are already receiving information on this particular schedule, and now you run into your day-to-day concerns. So what we're seeing here briefly is the gray numbers on the left-hand side are going to be the numbers and essentially head count of the employees that you need to fill that particular shift in that position. So these are going to be based on census and compliance considerations and your own quality care targets. So this is essentially what you'll use to build out that particular schedule. But what you're running into now is, and again, that real life scenario is on the right-hand side in the light blue or gray, is how many folks you have actually scheduled to those. So your need versus your actual. So you're going to have some visual cues pop up that are going to alert you of these common issues. So someone not showing up or someone calling off, and needing to go through that process for remaining in compliance and being able to quickly and efficiently fill that position. So I believe you mentioned on the discovery that you're actually you have a lot of information in your head, and you know where people typically work and when their availability is, et cetera, and you're going to manually call folks to find a replacement at the last minute. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So really going to create a huge efficiency here for you. So here we can easily see that someone's called off for this particular shift, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. We had a need for 3, we have 3, but someone wants to call off. So we can click directly on this, and we can actually see who wants to call off. So Leonard is saying he has an emergency, he can't make it tonight. So having a little bit of, time to figure it out, or we could even apply it to a no-show where someone hasn't shown up, the same process can take place. So we're going to say, oh yes.
They have to talk to a supervisor. We don't accept text messages or voicemails.
Okay, that's no problem at all. So one thing that I will probably say numerous times is that this is highly configurable, so you have complete control of what you allow the employees to do. So if you don't want them to be able to call off through the mobile app, then that actually can be completely shut off. So if it requires them to actually reach out directly to a manager, whether it be sending them a message in the app because they have that capability, or whatever method and workflow you currently use.
Okay.
So in this case, we can reference it to being maybe a no-call, no-show. So you're addressing someone just not showing it up at all.
Okay.
But no, it's a great question. So we're gonna save this particular situation, and we're gonna jump into employee mobile so you can see those particular details as well. So now immediately, again, visual representation and cues that you have 2 bodies versus 3. So there's an issue there. So I believe now where you would normally begin your call out process and manually reaching out to those folks, you have the ability to quickly and easily look at candidates so that you can find people that are available to work and potentially qualified, and have particular metrics around who you want to fill that particular slot. And it's something that you're not having to just remember as far as what everyone's doing, and I'm sure have a lot going on. So you have up here the ability to have different filter sets to make those particular customizations of if you're concerned with their hourly status, what their availability is, or strictly if you just want to get someone in as soon as possible because it's a compliance issue with not having someone available. It can easily be first come, first serve type of situation.
Can
So
you
in
pull
this
up
case,
people? Can you pull
I'm
up
sorry?
people that are not yet in overtime, or will it give you options to contact the people that would not result in overtime immediately? Like
You
per
most
diem?
certainly can. Yep. That's a great point. So actually, you have the ability, so we'll go to customize with this particular filter for Westbury that we have. In this case, I actually have an example of I do want to focus on my per diems because overtime is a consideration and a concern. So I know that they typically don't have as many hours. And now you're going to see that it actually took, you previously had, I believe, 26 candidates available that were not working and qualified to work this particular shift. But now you have specifics around more details of what you're wanting to fill, that be it in this case a per diem employee. And then other filters can be added as well. So all of these, for example, where it could be something distance from work, years of seniority, work progression can also be part of it, which would actually show what they've worked and what they're scheduled, so that you can confirm that they're not going to hit overtime if you make that selection. So you're having a more informed decision immediately at your fingertips, rather than having to potentially reference all of this information in numerous places before you then begin the call out process. So it's really giving you a leg up on the overall process itself by, again, putting it at your fingertips.
Okay.
So let's say we've narrowed down to the folks that we want to reach out to. So we have 11 candidates that are per diem that are able to work the shift as they're not scheduled. So rather than having to do that manual call out, you have the ability to either send a group message out to these employees for them to receive it within their app and receive a text notification to go to their app, or escalate search. So this is the really helpful tool that is going to give you that immediate communication to all of these employees without having to do it separately. So you're going to have a default message popping up here, and you can type in anything additional that you would like. And as soon as you click OK, it is going to send out a message via text to all of these selected candidates here all at once, asking if they have availability to work this particular shift. So now you're going to see that you have a real-time polling situation, so you're not just assigning, because you can easily click assign and hit save and fill that position. But if you want to have more employee engagement and make sure they are available so it's not a back and forth, you have this ability to reach out to them. And so let me play the role here of a couple folks. So I've received a text message saying a replacement is needed for 10 p.m. to 6. And they are given a 5-digit code that they can respond to if they are interested in working, and a different 5-digit code if they are not interested. So we're going to send a response here. And then say you step away and go handle some other things you have going on, you can come back and update your information and show responses. So here we have Justin saying, yes, I'm available, I'd like to work this shift. So rather than just assuming someone's available, the other folks have yet to respond, but if someone did wind up saying no, similar to the yes here, you would see a no here. So we have confirmation that he's available, so saving that back and forth if it's something that he couldn't do it if we were just to automatically assign him. And then it's quick and easy to select, save it. Your visual cue is then that it's updated back to 3, you return to compliance, and then with just a click of another button, you can close that call out, and you have a one-stop shop of being able to reach out to those 10 remaining folks that either said no or haven't responded yet, that the position has been filled, and then this will automatically send out a message to the person you selected as well that they are going to be working those hours. So something that now could put, depending on obviously the quickness of their responses, but you now have taken a process that could potentially take you, what's your average time do you think it would take you to call through and actually find a replacement if you have a no-call, no-show or a call-off situation?
Oh, goodness. That's such a drastic answer. Could be anywhere from an hour. It's extremely time consuming to individually call each person on my phone list. or
I'm
I
sure.
call the unit directly for first shift, hey, can you stay over? That's a lot faster, but it's then a lot of times people are gonna result in overtime, but I'm more times just need the shift filled. But
Yeah,
no, it
you just
takes
need a body.
Mhm.
Yeah, so hopefully, again, putting this type of workflow in place, and you have not only, or you're making an informed decision as well. So as you mentioned, with overtime being a problem, if that's a filter that you choose and having to be able to see what they've already worked, there are quick tools already in place. So for example, if you click on any of these candidates, obviously we've already selected one, but you can have a quick view into their current work schedules. So even right from the candidate list, you can have a little pop-up and show what their other schedules are for that conversation of overtime, or what their availability looks like. So again, giving things at your fingertips so that it's not this, horrible process for you. And that's kind of why I wanted to immediately jump in before really explaining the majority of what you're looking at here, because I've often seen that this is a constant issue of this is one of the more time-consuming ones, and alleviating this then allows you to go to your daily activities, because obviously all of these things aren't happening in this perfectly packaged situation and in a convenient order. Things are happening simultaneously, so while you're trying to solve this immediate issue, you're still, I'm assuming, trying to schedule your future schedules and plan for those.
Quick
So
question.
I do want to back up. Oh, of course. Go ahead.
How soon after, like if there was a no-show, how soon would I be notified that there was a no-show?
So that's based on parameters you want to set in the background. So you could essentially, so if someone doesn't punch, typically by the time that they're supposed to be in, they're going to show up as a no-show. But you can also have notifications built into the system that if someone is tardy within a certain amount of time, that you would be notified of that as well. So you have the representation here as soon as their shift is passed, but you also can get notifications if they're not punched in by a certain amount of time as well.
Okay, now our time clocks are their hand punches. I believe that once they punch, we have it set up that it pushes those punches in at certain times. So we would have to move that to be more often if this program's using those hand punches, correct?
Correct. Yep. It's going to rely on when the punches are transferred over. So depending on what your sync frequency is, it's usually a few minutes, but that would definitely be something to look into.
Yeah, I think it's more than a few minutes on 4 of our time clocks.
A couple hours.
Yeah, I think so.
Gotcha. Yeah, that should be, and of course, I don't want to speak for a clock that I don't know specifically, but on several clocks, you have the ability to make the sync more frequent for that exact purpose.
Okay.
Yeah, Debbie, we'll be able to, this is Howard, we'll be able to adjust that for you.
Because we don't have a reason to do it now. So it stores them in the time clocks and then pushes them out every couple hours.
Okay.
When it gets a bag full.
Okay.
No, I think it does it
Wow.
on a certain time schedule.
Okay.
Yep.
So we would
Then
have to
have more
change
like
that.
real time
Right.
get pushed
Right.
faster.
Right, if you're going to compare the schedule right online to your.
Right. Because what happens is sometimes at 2 o'clock, the unit supervisors are busy. Our shifts start at 6 a.m., 2 p.m., and 10 p.m. typically.
Mm-hmm.
So at 2 o'clock, there's been instances where there's somebody late. Nobody seems to call me for over 30 or 40 minutes. And then by the time I get notified, it's too late to get anybody from first shift to stay over.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
and then it's like, well, I don't know what you want me to do. I don't have an immediate fix,
Sure.
like right now.
Yeah. That's definitely a common problem that we hear, and a concern. So you have the ability to set up these notifications for if someone isn't punched in within whatever window you decide, whether it's 1 minute or 5 or 10, that you can actually have notifications come to you to make you aware of those without having to necessarily be staring at the screen itself to then begin the process of, like we had just done with the Escalate search, and finding a replacement or potentially making some movements around where employees are working.
Okay.
Yep, great question. So I'm going to jump back to kind of better level set and explain the overall process now. Now that you can kind of see in an ideal situation how you can create some efficiencies for you, to have the time for the day-to-day that we're going to go into now. So we do have breadcrumbs along the top here that allow you to go back to where you previously were. So it's a helpful navigational tool. Yep.
Never mind, we're good.
Okay.
Yeah. Right, because you did something, you filled the whole screen, so I can't get to where my sharing is. I wanted to try a couple things.
It was that.
Are you able to see the screen again?
You are, but what we're trying to do is cast it up onto our screen on the wall because it's very hard for us to all huddle around the laptop to see it.
Gotcha.
And unfortunately, the way this meeting started, we didn't get things done right. So.
Well, do you need me to pause for a moment to allow you to?
If you would not mind, just for a second.
Yeah, of course. No, take your time. You all didn't feel like the huddle and cuddle this morning and share a really close personal space?
It's just the way the GoToMeeting took us.
Gotcha.
And it seems like it's not.
I have problems casting in every conference room that I enter, so I feel your pain.
Yeah, so we're like casting a casting, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And I'm afraid the only way we'd be able to do is to disconnect and go in it. But so we'll just go with it this time, and
okay.
The most important person is seeing it, which is
okay.
Yeah.
And so. If that's the case and you do need me to repeat something, just interrupt me. If she wasn't able to see something, or someone else wasn't able to. Okay, perfect. So the colorful screen that we're on now, backing up, is basically, like I said, a representation of where your schedules are and the steps and stages, as if, of course, everything happens so neatly and perfectly. But the idea here is that you can group your particular locations and basically access the information and see where you need to go based on that. So you have groupings and tags so that you can pull up the schedule templates that you're actually concerned with working in. And then the colors that you see here, green means that it's good to go, everything should be all set. Red means that there's obviously some issues that you can see with the additional badges here. And then yellow will pop up when it's not an immediate need, but there are concerns. And then the badges identify different things, like how we had seen on that previous schedule we were on. If someone called off for no-shows, they all have corresponding colors to point those out to you. And then when you do select the template, you're going to see further detail on those. So I actually want to focus specifically on Glenwood. So I'm focusing on one location. And again, you can set it up this way or vary it slightly. But what we have here, again, speaking to an ideal situation, is basically 3 stages, if you will, as everything happens concurrently. So you have your draft stage, which is based on census information, your compliance concerns, whatever you schedule to now can be incorporated into that to determine the head count and the numbers, so based on your preferences. And basically, Jesse, I would equate it to establishing your needs list. So you're building these out based on all that information you have in your head and figuring out what you need for, I think you had said, for a 4-week schedule. So that's exactly what you can do within the draft stage. The posted stage itself is then posting it for employees to review. So it's not live dates yet, but it will be visible to employees so that there can be that employee interaction. So we found that by empowering employees and giving them greater involvement in the scheduling process, that we're seeing a reduction in call-offs and no-shows. And then they're having the ability to set their availability and then you have the choice of when you're putting them on the schedule. Trading and dropping and picking up schedules based on what interaction you want to allow them to have. Again, if you want to turn off that call off functionality from it, you most certainly can. So it really is up to you of what experience they have. And then finally, the live or completed stage is basically when you're publishing it and it goes live, and this is truly what employees should be working, which is the example of what we popped into for that first one, when you have those real-time fixes of like that escalate search for call off and something needing immediate need. That's just kind of an overall level set, but I'm going to click into now a schedule here that we have for, and you can see based on this column that's highlighted, this is our day and time in our demo space here. And we're in the posted phase of this particular schedule. So I'm going to click here and be taken back to that screen that we just became familiar with, just now in a different state. So here we have some additional colors. So drop request, pickup request corresponding with those badges that we had seen. So this is giving you time to play within the schedule and really offer that employee engagement. So again, equating it to kind of your current processes, I believe you said you had posted the needs list outside, and employees would come up and literally write on it, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we are just making this an electronic process now for you. So now it's something that can be audited. Now it's something that's in one location, and making it more visible and allowing employees that engagement. So maybe they're at home looking at their app to see if they want to pick up some more hours or vacation planning, and may have to be proactive about either putting in a leave request or maybe dropping a schedule. Because again, we're still in this management phase where we often see that you're scheduled to about 80% or so is typically what I've seen, and then allowing that employee interaction for the remainder. But going over what visually you're seeing here outside of these drops and pickups is, again, we have the gray numbers, which is based off, most often than not, I do see with it census data, so that there's an engine in the background that's going to calculate and pull in what you need based on your census. So you have it all laid out. Of course.
So the two buildings that I do scheduling for,
yes.
There's a personal care home and then the skilled nursing home, skilled building. In Grace, which is our skilled building, there are 4 units.
Yes.
So with those 4 units and cribs, I have cross-trained employees between the 2 buildings, but then on the units, I pull, like, there's a couple float employees that will get scheduled based on where the need is that day.
Yep.
But I guess my question is, you're looking at just Glenwood Springs. Can I look at the whole picture, or I have to look individually at each unit?
So that's a great question, and that's, again, something that can be built with how you'd like to see it. So in our demo environment, we're, of course, making some assumptions and building something out for a scenario, a typical scenario. But okay. You actually brought up a good point that I was going to go into, that we are within Glenwood Gardens, but this could be, you know, an overarching location for you that has units within it. So the zone A, B, and C that you have here could be those 4 units. If you're looking at, I apologize, I forgot the name that you had just said, but within that facility, the 4 units then you're managing. Okay. You can set it up exactly that way.
Okay, perfect.
And then you have the ability to classify employees when you're looking at those candidate lists that we had on the Escalate search, or if you're clicking on any of these shifts, you can view the current assignments. You have the ability when you're setting up your system to have what locations can essentially encompass other locations. So employees that you can have fill for other locations or other positions, that all can be configured in the background so that when you are establishing these filter lists, you're going to see those people and have them be at your availability of scheduling them. So that's a great question.
This is Debbie. When you say that can be set up, that doesn't phase our time and attendance system then?
No, so with the scheduling piece, so there's of course the time and attendance side within this as well, but for scheduling purposes, you can set up lists and filters, et cetera, outside of the standard assignments of the employees themselves, if you will.
Because we have them set up in time and attendance as a certain department, but Jess can then do her own setup to what she's going to schedule them as.
Exactly. Yep. So it's going to, and actually that's a great question, because what you see here is if we had this pulled up where it was showing from other locations, you would be able to see that Lauren Patterson, for example, if she were one of our other locations, but she has the ability to essentially cross over, you would see her identified, like we have a Cedar Springs one, for example, is one of our other names. She'd be identified here, but because of the settings in the background, she's showing as a candidate to fill in. But it's not changing her as a whole as far as how she actually is identified within the time and attendance piece, if that makes sense.
So when they're scheduled, like let's say she went to a different department, does that flow over to time and attendance to say that she worked in a different department then, or do we still have to do department transfers?
Yeah, does it automatically reallocate?
It would, yes. It can be set up to reallocate, because the time and attendance engine is running essentially, we're looking solely at the scheduling piece of it. The time and attendance piece is running in the background and part of the other options you have, so that you're already familiar with. Those options still exist. We're just solely focusing on the time and attendance, the scheduling side of it.
Okay.
So, yep, if you're scheduling them, so there's a lot of visual cues. I won't go into all of them, but if you're scheduling them to a different location, for example, outside of what we often call like their home work group, you would see when you're looking in numerous places at the employee schedule, there's often a color change. So you can identify that they're out of where they normally are. And then by scheduling them accordingly, those hours would be allocating properly for the time and attendance piece.
That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah, it really is designed to automate so many processes for you so that you can focus on the whole design behind this is so that you can focus on not doing this. Because you mentioned also, which is flabbergasting to me, that you have another role as well, because I can't imagine doing this alone, let alone taking on other responsibilities. So we really want to take, I can't imagine. Take some of the excuses. Oh, that's right. Your boss is on the phone. I'm gonna.
Yeah, he's next to me.
Yeah, he never lets up.
Yeah, no, those. No, mine's tear up. No, she's not, but she's not on the phone, so I can forget. So we can really take I don't want to say guesswork because you're not guessing, but we can take a lot of the manual work out of it for you and really set you up to be in a good position to worry about those immediate needs and not the planning, if you will. So those are all great questions. So, and yeah, keep them coming. So feel free to interrupt me. But we have the numbers that we need, the numbers that we have, and you have the visual cues here of when things are taking place. So with the employee interaction, let's jump into that mobile experience for the employees to have that engagement. So here we have a pickup request. We can show details and we can see who is offered to pick this up. So we have Keith, who is saying, I'd like to work this schedule. So we have the ability to approve or deny it, save it, and then it's going to immediately update your numbers here, and that's all taken care of. But before I do that, I actually want to pull you into Keith's environment. So here we have a nice little fake phone of what Keith's experience is as an employee. So there's a lot of really valuable information here. So when he logs in as an employee, he is going to see open shifts available. So again, eliminating that paper needs list. Now we have it on a mobile app that he can see essentially from anywhere. So he can see, like he would on that printed piece of paper, open schedules that he's eligible to work. So it's not going to show something that he's not qualified to work at a location that he's approved to work. Then he also is going to see his particular work schedules for this pay period, and then can click on any of these to see additional information. But if he goes further into the future, for example, how we had mentioned that the employees, and you can control their interaction with it. So you noticed on that first schedule I clicked on, that was closer to the current date, and he had no blue options down below. And I just clicked on a later schedule because based on this particular setup, we're saying that within a certain span of time close to the actual date, now they can come in here and drop a schedule and maybe trade with another employee. So you can control not only what they can do, but the timing in which they can do it. So, and again, if you want to not have a drop schedule or a call off or anything like that, that can be removed as well. So you have full say on what the employee's capabilities
Emily,
are.
what's the drop schedule mean? Like, can you explain that again?
Yep. So drop schedule is actually, if we go back over here real quick, because we're not in a live stage where they would be calling off, we have the option for them to drop it, and it would show up like you see here, where it's basically they have enough time to drop it if you're allowing them to, so that you
Like
can
drop
then
the shift.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It says drop schedule, but it's dropping the shift.
Okay.
That is a call.
Mhm.
The problem
And
is
then
if
if
we
you
don't let anybody drop nothing.
Yeah.
which totally fine. We can eliminate that completely. So that if
Okay.
you want to make it as hard as possible for them to not work a shift, we can take those pieces right out of it and then just make it something where they can interact in a positive way of picking up shifts and trading with other employees.
Back in later on? Let's say we
Yeah.
had a rush of employees for 2020 and we have lots of people. We could just turn that drop back on then?
You
Even
can,
though
yep.
we're
Yep, the system is not only configurable as far as everything that you can do, but there is timing to it that if you decide down the road that you want a functionality that you initially said no to, you can reach out and that can happen.
That's nice. That's
Yep.
nice.
Good question. So obviously work visibility here. And then there's additional features that are going to make your jobs a lot easier as well. So offering engagement to the employees, but scheduling them properly in the first place so that you're not having them call off and things like that. So they can come out here. They can see a timeline in this particular view of when they're scheduled to work. They can view a calendar and view their schedules that way and go to different months, etc. But they also have the ability on the app to indicate availability and request time off. So this information then flows over to the manager side so that you can incorporate, because this is still a time and attendance engine, that you can incorporate leave requests and have them flow directly through so that it goes onto their time card when that time comes and you can see that they're scheduled off. So they can easily make requests on the app itself. They can choose, what benefit they have available to them and show how much time they have. Again, this is based on how you're set up, time and attendance and payroll. And they can select specific amount of hours and even put notes in. They want to take a day off because it's their birthday and they think that's special. So this has now gone through to the manager side and we will touch base on that continued workflow. But they have the ability to see that it's pending. They're going to get a notification within the app when it's been approved or if it's been denied. All of that's going to flow through so that they're not having to bug you guys about whether or not it's been taken care of. There is also the option that's going to play into how you schedule them, where they can set up their rotations. So when you have those filters, when you're filling positions in a draft or planning stage, you're going to have a filter that's going to show availability. So employees can be empowered to come out here and say, beginning on, so let's pretend this is a student and they have different availability because they're going back to school. So beginning in September, they have a new rotation where they prefer to work at these times. They're unavailable at these times, so just double clicking makes it unavailable in red and available in green. Or leaving gray, meaning no preference. They can come out here and set this, and then this would get submitted to the manager to essentially have visibility and approve it. So it doesn't make them unavailable in the sense of they're not going to be prevented from being scheduled, but it would give you visibility into their preferences to have those conversations and make sure that, trying to schedule a happy staff as much as possible. But it also does require a starting date and approval because it's not going to immediately assume that whatever they say is actually going to take place for them because you still have final approval. So there's a lot of things in place here that are making the communication very smooth and quick and efficient. And one of the other things that I really like about the app is that there's communication between not only the employee and the manager, but between employees and other employees for those, maybe those trade purposes. So if we go back out here and we are going to approve Keith, we want to reach out to him and let him know and thank him for picking up a shift. We always appreciate when someone's proactive and we don't have to hunt people down. So as a manager, you have the ability right here to go to Talk To. And we're going to say, I'm going to give you those hours. Okay, so now as a manager, we are reaching out directly to Keith. And then if we pull back our mobile phone here, he has a notification that there's a message that his manager has reached out to him. I'm making this difficult on myself. Here's my version of casting issues. So send message, and then they're immediately receiving that message within the system as well. So you can have an in-app communication. You're not having to go through another source. And then the biggest piece is that this is now reportable. Because if you're having communication through a text message, for example, that is not reportable anymore. So you now have lost the ability, especially if it's between employees, to track, if necessary, any conversations that are being had. So within this communication, you can report on it and keep it all in one place. So it's great feature that I really like about it as well.
Does that tell us when they read it?
It does not. I actually think, oh, go ahead.
You go ahead. This is something different.
Okay. Yeah, so it's going to have the timestamps here, but I don't believe it's a functionality of showing when it's read.
I don't think you can do that.
So if they offer they're available and we tell them it's yours, there's no confirmation on their end back? Is that what you're saying?
So the confirmation would be as if, like, for example, you wanted to send them a message saying, I'm going to assign this to you, and then you can have them maybe have a workflow expecting them to respond to it. But we also want to frame this, that this is still within a drafting and an employee engagement phase where it's not yet live. So if you want to make this not an option within the live phase for them to, you know, have interaction when it's actually the shifts that are being worked, this is still in a planning phase, but you could have your confirmation be the message itself, and then that, again, that is reportable.
Perfect. On that cell phone that you had for the employee view, can you show me what trading looks like?
Yep. So go to, I believe there was available on this one. So they click trade, they can put in their own message, otherwise it just sends out the generic message and then the date and time for it. And then they save it. And then rather than me hunting around for an employee that would have visibility in this, I'll just show you pretending that we're looking at another one here. What happens is any other employee that's eligible to see that is going to have it now become an open shift to show as available, like this one. So this is another employee putting a trade out there that he has visibility to see. So you can offer to pick up this schedule, just taking the hours completely as another employee, or you can offer a swap. So if you're offering a swap, the drop-down is going to give you your available shifts that you can send back to him. And then you can also put in a particular note. And then what happens is it sends a notification within this manager system to actually have to approve that trade. So it doesn't automatically just happen. It's something where, and I'll show you here in just a moment what that looks like on the other end, where the manager has the ability to review it and make sure that they want that to happen. And then once they approve it, the schedules get updated on both of those employees' sides in their application, and then they're notified that it was successful.
Perfect. Because ultimately, if they're trading, I want it, like the first option has to be a swap, especially if they're two
Sure.
full-time employees. So
Yep.
they have to switch the hours in the same week so it doesn't result in overtime. But if there's something like an emergency that comes up and they just have to get rid of it and then use benefit time, like that could be given.
Yep,
Not
you bet.
given, but-
And
Okay.
that's a great workflow. So if you want to eliminate all other options but a trade on those, when you're clicking on those schedules, you can definitely do that. So that
I
puts
just
the ball
wanted
in
to see
their
the-
court.
The
What was
first
that?
option. I just would like it to be the first, like the first option, like not to just give it away.
Yeah, that's totally understandable. Yeah, and making them accountable for filling that and taking that off of your plate, that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
And then they
Okay.
also have the ability within that in-app messaging that if they know a certain someone that could potentially take that shift, they can reach out to them by
To
searching
avoid
them in
calling
here.
off then, right?
Pardon?
To avoid calling off, like maybe their child's sick.
Exactly.
And they really know they can't make it, so they're trying to get rid of it. So then they can
You got it.
message coworkers. Okay.
Yep, you're doing my demo for me. That's exactly the case where they can take accountability into it. And my search is clearly working very well here. But they can search, they're going to be able to
interview
search the
later,
employees and select them. Yeah, we'll schedule something this afternoon. That's good. I appreciate it.
I'm still in the room.
Oh, no. So, yeah, no, that's a great question. So you, again, setting the parameters of what they're allowed to do, when they're allowed to do it is no problem.
Okay.
So we'll go through, and actually I'll bring this back up. So here's our message. He's confirmed if that's the workflow to make sure that you want to give him those hours, you can create that. But I'm going to now approve it. I'm going to save it. And then it's going to give you your representation here that you now have 4 again. This is all taken care of, and it's updated on the employee side as well. And then I'm not really going to address drops. It's the same workflow, but you can remove that if you don't want them to have that option. And again, make it as difficult as possible for them to do that, especially if you want them to trade and try to swap it first.
Yeah.
So, but just so you can see what happens, that if you do approve the drop, it does the same where we just saw it fill it. You now see it reduce the number to 3 and that we have a gap there again.
Okay.
So one of the things that you brought up, which is, again, you, like I said, doing the demo for me, is those units. You did mention that in the discovery. And so the zones that we identify here can be set up as units. And you brought up what I was going to show you here of you have a discrepancy of your understaffed here and overstaffed here, and that's what these colors are indicating as well. So you have 3 here, you need 4, and you actually are overscheduled and only need 4, but you have 5. So within these different units, you have the ability to, again, just one click here or there, view the current assignments, and actually I'm doing it backwards, view the current assignments of who's working, look at their information, filter them, you know, of however you want to make your decision of, okay, this particular person, you know, I know would be happy to do this, or whatever the reasoning might be. You can, again, have quick jump views of viewing their time card or their other schedules, things of that nature, right from here. But what I'm going to do is I'm picking on William, and I'm saying, William, I need you to fill in Zone B, or in your case, Unit 2.
Okay.
And with that click of a button, you have now addressed that within your planning and posted stage of making sure you're back in compliance within those units.
Awesome.
So just making it super simple to make the adjustments so that you have time to focus on the stuff that is out of your control. We're here to help you, you know, fix the stuff that is in your control and have visibility into it so that when employees do what they're always going to do, and which is not what they're supposed to do, you can fix those too.
Okay, limitations. How many zones can you have? How many different areas can you have?
So this is based on a work group structure.
Okay.
So you can have as many as you want. the one thing to bear in mind is, depending on how you build out your schedules, is that the more zones you have, obviously it's increasing your view here. So that's just one thing to mention. But you do have the option to really construct it the way that makes most sense to your scheduling needs. So for example, if I actually scroll down, because we've really been focusing in one area, you have CNAs and RNs and LPNs and then DONs. So we had this set up that this was the template for nursing in Glenwood Gardens. If you wanted to, based on your structure, have only CNAs on one template and then have a separate template for RNs, you can do that as well if you wanted to have multiple zones to prevent you from scrolling, for example. So there is the opportunity to build it with what makes more sense for your way of doing business. But this is just, again, for a demo environment, what we commonly see. We're trying to mirror it just to give you a perspective.
Right. Now, this can be used throughout our whole building, not just specific departments, right?
Yeah, as far as, so if you set it up to have scheduling for different locations, you can do it for different departments. You can set your construction based on, like I was saying, just kind of what makes the most sense. So you're not constrained by it being just the nursing department or one location. You really can build this out for multiple areas or your whole company.
So the beginning setup is really the most critical to get it laid out.
Yeah, and then oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, just the way that we'd want to see it and be able to access. Yeah. I mean, Jesse does all the nursing, which is very important here, but we also have a housekeeping group that would like to be scheduling also and have, a smaller version of just their employees.
You got it. Yeah. So and we have different industries that we work with. So this is, more of the healthcare industry, long-term care. But within that, you could have under, again, this being one of your locations, you could have a nursing, you could have a housekeeping, you could have a kitchen, all of these different locations or departments. I'm sorry?
And the security can be set up so Jess would only see the nursing.
Yeah, you can have the ability to have different profiles, essentially, where there are accounts that you create in the background that are giving you access to specific templates or views.
Okay. Good.
Yep, there's permission-based with that. So jumping back into the schedule real quick, just to point out a couple other items. So with that trade that we had gone over, and leave requests, because we're not really jumping into the time and attendance piece, but other things that she is concerned with and go into the scheduling and planning and employee aspects of it, is there is this really handy to-do list. So making things visible, again, is the number one thing that we have within the solution, is making them pop up when you need to be concerned. So you have the ability to see your to-do list of people that have, again, not drop shifts, but that are wanting to pick up shifts and that need approval, or that they've submitted a new leave request, or in the case of the trade, we have Harry here that wanted to trade, and Keith offered to pick it up. So actually when we're playing in Keith's app here, so it gives you a lot of helpful information showing you when they want to trade it, for what shift, who's getting what, and then you have the ability to reject it or approve it.
Cool.
So once you approve it, it flows to both of them, updating their schedule accordingly, takes it off of your to-do list, and that's all you have to do with it, not any additional action. They're going to get notifications within the app that it was approved, and it has now become their responsibility.
So you're talking about the program all this time, but I don't want to, do you also have the ability for all the reports that she needs?
Yep, you bet. So now you're doing my job. Both of you are going to have interviews later. So if we actually, there's tons of reports in the system. I'm going to jump into one specifically before I get to the others, but there are actually over 60 templated reports that you can adjust, export to Excel, PDF. You can put them on an automatic sending timer to different recipients. But one of the most common ones that we see that's very helpful is the daily assignment reports when we're talking about long-term care and census,
Yep.
et cetera.
That
So we
was
have
on
our
my
BIPA report here that you can easily print this or email it off and have all of that information at your fingertips to remain in compliance.
Can you show me what it would look like as a PDF, that daily assignment? Perfect. So then it would show you Zone A.
Which would be our town square.
Yep, there's the RNs and then CNAs, RNs and CNAs, and then it shows it for the entire day.
Yep.
Okay, awesome.
You bet. Yeah, we've done a lot of research into this industry and trying to, because we can, of course, customize things and build what's necessary because it is very configurable, but we've really done our due diligence of figuring out what you need to remain in compliance and your day-to-day things and trying to be ahead of that with things like this, for example.
Does your program allow for us to customize reports or not?
So you have the ability, that's a good question. You have the ability within the reports and summaries to make changes to them. So I'm going to shared reports here. And you have, again, 60 plus to choose from with different topics here. So if we go to, just picking on a generic one here, a specific schedule one, you can come in and select a report, and then you have the opportunity to change the period of time you want to look at,
Right.
again, how you want to export it, what work groups or like what set of people you would like to look at.
Uh-huh.
And then one of my favorite things, it's so simple, but I think it's incredibly helpful, is that if you need because it's all about getting information to the right people in this industry, it seems like. So if you have folks that aren't necessarily day-to-day within the system, you have the ability to come out here and choose a day of the week, a time of day, PDF, Excel, CSV, whatever, to put one of these reports in someone's path, you know, with email recipients and whatever subject and message at that frequency, so that you're not having to remember to do it. You're not having to come in here every time to do it. Exactly. So you can do that on any of these.
That's a customizable report, but that's not creating a brand new report.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah, as
so,
far as creation of new reports, that's not a functionality within here.
okay.
Good question. So that's essentially everything that I really wanted to highlight for you today, to not overwhelm you more than I probably already have. It's a lot of information. There's a lot of things that you can do, especially when you consider the fact that it can be really configured to meet your needs. But essentially, in a nutshell, based on, you know, the discovery that we had, we really want to give you visibility and engage your employees and allow you to not have to focus on potentially some of the items that are super tedious now to deal with those day-to-day concerns. And then with that employee empowerment engagement, give them some visibility and hopefully alleviate them from calling off or not being available by having them feel like they have more control in creating that work-life balance. That was one of the things you mentioned, and, you know, in David, when we had spoken on Discovery, his perfect world scenario, he asked you, promoting work-life balance. That's exactly what we're hoping to accomplish here.
I have one other question too.
You bet.
For somebody who is off the street per se, they're looking for a new job. Is there anything in this that would, if they called and scheduled an appointment or interview with me, that it would automatically, is there any, like an app or anything like that that would be able to allow them to fill out the application? Do you think so?
You don't have
I would
HR.
actually, yeah, I would not within this particular solution, but I would turn that over to Howard to see if he has any suggestions with anything else. I'm not able to speak to that personally, but.
Okay.
What is the length of time of implementation that normally takes for the system to be put in, who somebody is, you know, we're very active in your time and attendance, so I'm sure it's set up similar to that, but what is your length of time of implementation usually?
So that's a great question as well, and that's actually how I wanted to wrap up. So again, those interviews, guys, we're ready and waiting. But the implementation process is you're going to have an implementation specialist assigned to you to walk you through this process and glean all of those details of how you want it built. So they'll essentially hold your hand through that. As far as the timeline is concerned, it's hard to judge just based on the fact that it's dependent on exactly what you're looking for it to be done in the system. But you nailed it as well, is that if you're engaged with the process, because it is a back and forth and, establishing and emailing and following through on items, then it definitely helps the process. But as far as the timeline, again, that's more of for Howard to speak to specifics, and I think he'll probably be able to follow up with you on that as well.
How many people do you have using this system right now?
David, he might not be on the call anymore. That's also a great question, and I would be estimating a number that might be accurate or completely off base. We have long-term care facilities specifically, several. Because this is a product that is completely been revamped, and so we've had our pilots, and now we're actually onboarding and when I say several, I'm referring to clients that are upwards of anywhere from 3,000 to 10,000 employees.
Is there anybody in the Crawford County area or Erie County, like any of our surrounding counties, that we could potentially see their live system?
Howard, are you
not for the part that we're showing today. We have 7 or 8 that we're showing this to, but as far as having anybody be using it in Erie County, Crawford County, Warren County today, there's nothing right now at this exact moment, but I'm pretty confident.
So this is a brand new product?
So the product is out. Yeah, no, it's been out it's about a year now. So it's just, as far as locally speaking, I don't think we have examples.
Do you feel that this product's, all of the issues or bugs that have come up have been worked out? Or is that still on?
So that's
that
definitely
question.
Part of it.
Let me take that question.
So
absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, it's to say that any software package, today Word and Excel and every software package in the world. So to speak to the fact that every single bug has been worked out, I don't even have to be on the development side to say no. I think the better question is, can we speak to another person who's used this for 90 days and get their opinion on how practical the workflow is working? Might be, if you don't mind me rephrasing that, asking me if you think that that's maybe a question that you'd consider as being an appropriate one.
Yeah. I'm interested to see if there's somebody around that you have that is doing similar processes to me right now, how it's worked for them and how it's going, and their thoughts and concerns and pros and cons.
That's something I think that through Emily and through David, I do believe that that's a fair question. I didn't really ask Emily and David in advance, but I believe that having the ability to talk to somebody in the healthcare field who's had some experience with it is a very, very fair expectation.
And Howard, I'm going to cut right to the chase. What's the cost of all of this? Because I can tell them I want it, but it doesn't mean anything.
Right. Well, it's going to be it's going to be on the range of cost per employee per month. So it is going to be a hosted solution. It's going to be cloud. And depending upon how many people are active within the system, there's going to be a price range. It's probably going to be somewhere in the $4 to $4.75 range, depending upon, after all, we gather all this information. And there's going to be a one-time implementation fee, and that I need to have one follow-up meeting with the team that did the demonstration today to be able to give that to you. But I should be able to get an accurate price to you here within a week.
Okay, and you say 400 to 475 a month. You're guessing at probably 450 employees then.
Well, I was saying maybe I didn't come across, maybe I didn't even enunciate, but it's per individual employee in the range of $4 per individual employee to $4.75 per individual employee per month. Well, I didn't state it correctly then. It's my poor sentence structure there. But I will put it in writing to you here within the week.
We need that.
And Howard will definitely feel free to reach out to David after the call so that we can follow up with what you folks were requesting. Definitely makes total sense. And anything else I can answer for you regarding the product as of right now? I appreciate everyone's time and listening to me ramble for an hour.
No, I don't think so.
All right, wonderful.
I'd like to
Howard,
say, Emily, I thought you did a great job.
Oh,
Yes,
well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the time that you spend into it.
Absolutely.
You're
I
very
appreciate that, Emily.
Not a problem. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, everyone, and I'll see you later for your interviews.
All right, have a great day.
Bye-bye, everyone. I'll get back in touch with Westbury.
Okay. Thank you,
Justin.
Howard.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.